and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Cycle on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Jumai Manson. Now, a quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Now, the news info. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved a minor reshuffle of the Federal Executive Council, removing the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, and the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa, from their cabinet positions. A statement by the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Yomi Odunuga, says the development was contained in a memo signed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. According to the memo, Taiwo Oyedele has been appointed as the new Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Also appointed is Dr. Mustuak Dharma as Minister-designate for Housing and Urban Development. Former Abia State Governor, Senator representing Abia North, Orji Uzo Kalu, has attributed Nigeria's current economic challenges to insecurity and acts of sabotage, despite what he described as progress in ongoing economic reforms. Kalu spoke with journalists at the National Assembly lobby in Abuja during activities marking his 66th birthday. National Assembly correspondent Anete Patrick reports.
Addressing the state of the economy, Senator Uzo Kalu said while reforms are yielding positive results at the macro level, their impacts are yet to fully reach ordinary Nigerians due to persistent security concerns. He, however, noted that the lower end of the reform spectrum continue to face difficulties as insecurity and deliberate acts of sabotage by some political actors are undermining the gains of government's policies.
I have said this many times to you people. The economic reform, the upper end of the reform is working, and this is why you see a lot of people from Australia, Chinese, Americans, investors are pouring in here. But the lower end of the reform, it had some problems because of insecurity. It's not because of President Tinubu have not done what he's supposed to have been doing, but because of we have insecurity, we have sabotage. You see a lot of politicians and a lot of people are sabotaging our efforts also.
On the political front, Kalu dismissed allegations that the ruling All Progressives Congress APC is working with the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to weaken opposition parties through the electoral process. He insisted that INEC, under its chairman Professor Josh Amapiton, operates independently and should be respected as an autonomous institution.
As a party, I have nothing to do with INEC. INEC is an independent body, and we have a lot of respect for chairman of INEC. He's a man, an erudite professor of law with the highest honor of law in Nigeria. He's an SAN and a professor of law. He was a teacher to many lawyers in Nigeria. So let us stop this frivolity. People should take electoral process and take democracy serious.
Kalu maintained that while Nigerians' economic reforms are beginning to show positive indicators at the macro level, their full benefits will remain limited unless urgent steps are taken to address insecurity and curb sabotage within the system. He urged sustained collaboration among security agencies, policymakers, and political stakeholders to ensure that ongoing reforms translate into real economic relief for Nigerians at the grassroots. From the National Assembly, Anete Patrick, Global TV News.
The federal government has filed a 13-count charge before the Federal High Court in Abuja against alleged plotters of coup against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There were reportedly 40 suspects identified in connection with the alleged conspiracy. The Nigerian security agencies concluded investigations into an alleged coup plot to violently overthrow President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. The Joint Action Committee of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and Non-Academic Staff Union have demanded the immediate withdrawal of a controversial letter allegedly approving a 30% salary increase for non-teaching staff or risk a nationwide shutdown of public universities. In a strongly worded letter signed by the committee's Secretary General Peter Adeyemi and President Non-Academic Staff Union Mohammed Ibrahim, the workers described the development as shocking and unacceptable. The letter was addressed to the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa. The federal government has renewed effort to address livestock diseases affecting farmers and food production as it explores partnerships to improve vaccine access across the country. The development was disclosed in a statement shared on the official page of the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. The meeting is focused on addressing the impact of livestock diseases such as foot and mouth disease and contagious bovine pneumonia, which have continued to affect productivity and farmer income. The Independent National Electoral Commission in Osun State assures residents of a peaceful, credible, and transparent governorship election on August 15th. The new resident electoral commissioner in the state, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, gave the assurance while addressing protesters at the commission's office in Osogbo. The report says protesters comprising market women and a civil society group protested the transfer of former Rec. Dr. Mitiu Agboke, alleging possible manipulation of the election. Babalola, represented by the head of legal department, Mr. Ni Faneju, and the head of voters education and publicity, Mr. Rufus Ariyo, assured the protesters that their votes would count. In a bid to sensitize and have women inclusion in the electoral process, the African Women Lawyers Association Abuja branch has visited Karu Market with a dual purpose, sensitizing citizens on the electoral process and providing free medical checkups. Samuel Odi reports for Global Television.
The initiative, aimed at deepening civil awareness and promoting public health, saw members of the association engage traders and shoppers on the importance of active participation in Nigeria's electoral process. The lawyers highlighted key issues including voters' registration, the power of the ballot, and the need for peaceful and credible elections. Speaking during the exercise, the coordinator, African Women Lawyers Association, Abuja, Oluwatoyin, stressed that democracy thrived when citizens are informed and actively involved, noting that market communities remain a critical segment of voting population.
To enlighten us, to educate us, to engage us on the importance of active participation in the electoral process. The electoral process is not just for politicians alone, it belongs to every one of us. And so we are here to encourage you to come out to vote for your conscience. Your vote is your voice. Your participation is what gives democracy its meaning.
The outreach also provided an opportunity to educate participants on basic health practices, encouraging regular checkups and early detection of potential health issues.
We also have a responsibility as a citizen to be patriotic enough to make all the steps needed, to exercise all the steps, take all the steps needed for you to go vote. So that's just the few things I want to.
The African Women's Lawyers Association, Abuja branch, says it remains committed to promoting justice, civil responsibility, and community well-being through initiatives that directly impact everyday Nigeria. Samuel D, Global TV News.
Stakeholders in the election process have reiterated their commitment to ensuring free, fair, peaceful, and credible governorship election in Ekiti State. The stakeholders, including the Independent National Electoral Commission, Police National Orientation Agency, Nigeria Civil Defense Corps, and the Nigerian Union of Journalists, they spoke in Ado Ekiti during a two-day media and election stakeholders dialogue, Interaction on Credible Elections in Ekiti State. The program was targeted at ensuring that all relevant stakeholders perform their duties with the desired sense of responsibility in a way that the election can be inclusive, free, fair, and devoid of toxicity of disinformation and misinformation. Overnight, the Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, has approved the restructuring of the Police Monitoring Unit as part of efforts to strengthen discipline and improve operational efficiency within the Nigerian police force. The force Public Relations Officer Anthony Plasek disclosed this in a statement in Abuja. He said the move was part of ongoing reforms aimed at refocusing the unit on its core mandate and enhancing oversight across commands and formations. A federal high court sitting in Abuja admitted 9 documentary exhibits against the former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami and his wife Asabe Bashir and son Abdulaziz Malami in an ongoing alleged money laundering trial. The trial judge Joyce Abdul Malik admitted the documents following their tendering by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission through its 4th prosecution witness. The anti-graft agency is prosecuting the defendant on an amended 16 charges bordering on conspiracy, procuring, disguising, concealing, and laundering. The Cross River State government has reported an occurrence of COVID-19 in the state. The State Commissioner for Health, Henry Ayuk, made the announcement at a news conference in Calabar, the state capital. According to Ayuk, the first reported case of the outbreak involved a Chinese national who worked with a company and flew into the country before falling ill. The commissioner stated that the Chinese condition became worse at the medical facility and had to be taken to the University of Calabar Teaching Hospital. You are watching the live broadcast of News Cycle. News Cycle continues after this weather forecast, plus business, foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast. Wednesday appears good for rainfall over much of the country from the south into the central states. We expect bulk of these storms to originate from a weather system that should build up over the eastern flank from Adamawa into Taraba and the high grounds of Plateau. We expect this storm to build here and propagate and spread across much part of the country and move westward. Such storms are usually accompanied by very strong winds, so you may want to take care. And the good thing is that we expect bulk of this rain to come between late night into early hours of Thursday morning, and so a good night's sleep is also heightened. That's our weather forecast from here. Thank you for watching and see you again.
You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is News Cycle on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. In business now, the federal government says the National Single Window Initiative is beginning to ease trade bottlenecks and improve transparency in Nigeria's business environment, with early gains already recorded across key agencies. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Jumoke Oduwole, made this known at the spring meeting of the IMF and the World Bank 2026 meeting titled From Policy to Jobs. Kikelomo Okere has details.
It was an integral part of the spring meeting of the IMF and the World Bank 2026. The meeting titled From Policy to Job, Creating Businesses, Enabling Regulatory Environment was an opportunity for the World Bank, government and private sector to brainstorm on how policies affect jobs. Nigerian Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Jumoke Oduwole, joined the panel and identified the National Single Window Tax Reform laws.
So publishing that, communicating that and building trust, accepting when things go wrong, because sometimes reforms do have unintended consequences, especially when you don't carry everybody along, especially the users of the reform, the private sector.
Other speakers at the session recommended a synergy between the government and the private sector.
The deregulation and competition policies have an economist layer, but they have a political economy layer. And the political economy layer is much more important, which is weakening the power of the blocking agent.
Only two words: predictability, clarity. We as private sector, we can't deal with a moving goalpost. We're a larger firm. If you tell us what the rules are, we'll structure for the rules. If the rules aren't great and they're bad, well, that's what they are, but we'll meet them and we'll go through it. It just takes longer to implement.
The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, after the meeting, spoke on some of the federal government's ease of doing business initiative.
In terms of the time, the speed, the transparency of doing business for private sector, being able to leverage, like some of the meetings I had this week in DC, some very large investors were looking, they've studied the tax legislation and they're looking at the new categories that they can use and leverage to bring even more billions of dollars of investments into the country and how that will be implemented.
The takeaway here is for government and the private sector to align strategies in a more structured manner for deputized and enhanced productivity. Kike Lomo Okere, Global TV News.
Nigeria's push for industrial self-reliance is gaining momentum as Aerogym Investments Limited steps up efforts to reduce dependence on imported goods. The company says it is expanding production capacity in footwear and garments, while also targeting job creation, skill development, and export growth across West Africa. The company's chief executive officer, Jimmy Newton, made this revolution in an exclusive interview with Global Television in Abuja. Anita Patrick reports.
As its manufacturing hub, Aerogym Chief Executive Officer Jimmy Ntweng says it is positioning itself as a key player in delivering high-quality, locally made products for security agencies, schools, and the wider public sector. From shoes to garments, Aerogym Investments Limited is betting big on local production to replace imported products and strengthen Nigeria's industrial base. The company says its facility is capable of producing up to 1,500 pairs of shoes daily, with a focus on durability, consistency, and uniform quality for institutional use.
What we're trying to do is to make sure, see how we can reduce importing of all these substandard things coming in from outside to the country. Aerogym has a factory in Aba, a shoe factory that produces very high quality shoes, both for military, paramilitary, and public use, mostly schools. And we have the capacity. As of today, it's only Aerogym that has the capacity to produce 1,500 shoes per day. They do not mix color, same color, and also in the whole of West Africa.
Beyond footwear, the company is also expanding into garments production and exploring export opportunities while working with development finance institutions to scale operations. Aerogym Chief Executive Officer also says its workforce development model comprises training programs, including initiatives targeted at inmates and young Nigerians entering the workforce.
We are willing to do more as we're going expanding because we're going to continue to expand like that. And we have 3 lines. That means each line can do 1,500 production, both the military and paramilitary, and very high quality. So we don't come.
He further says its long-term ambition is to strengthen Nigeria's manufacturing sector, reduce imports, and position local production as a competitive force across Africa. Anita Patrick, Global TV News.
The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission said 21 states, including Rivers and Kano, are yet to assume regulatory control of their electricity markets, nearly 3 years after the enactment of the Electricity Act 2023. The Commission disclosed that the states that have completed the transition have established their own electricity regulatory framework and are now responsible for market development, investment attraction, tariff oversight, and customer protection within their jurisdictions. According to the Commission, the shift follows the decentralization provisions of the Electricity Act 2023, which empowers subnational government to regulate electricity generation, transmission, and distribute within their territories after completing the necessary legal and administrative processes. On the foreign news now, more than 200 civilians held captive in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo by an armed group linked to the Islamic State have been rescued in an army operation. Ugandan soldiers working with their Congolese counterparts targeted a camp controlled by the Allied Democratic Forces, a militant group that has its origin in Uganda. Children were among those freed, the youngest being a 14-year-old girl. Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamard says the leader of the United States, Israel, and Russia are seeking to impose a new predatory world order, while most countries are too cowardly to stop them. At a press conference in London presenting the group's annual report on human rights, Callamard says the rest of the world has been largely either complicit or engaged in politics of appeasement. Zara Nasru tells us more.
Launching the Global Group's annual report in London, Secretary General Agnes Callamard condemned U.S. President Donald Trump, Russia's Vladimir Putin, and Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu as predators. She says such leaders have rejected the multilateral system developed since World War II in favor of a vision without moral compass, where war nor diplomacy rolls the report into global protection of human rights.
In response to the predatory behaviors of the United States, Israel, or Russia, the rest of the world has been largely either complicit or engaged in politics of appeasement. This is why we have concluded that the era of the predators is also an era of cowards.
Callamard warned in the papers that the report comes at a challenging moment that could destroy all that was built up over the last 80 years. She noted that throughout 2025, Trump, Putin, and Netanyahu, among others, pursued economic and political domination through international destruction, suppression, and violence on a massive scale.
So in 2025, Amnesty International may not have highlighted the predatory behaviors of China, but that's mostly because in comparison with others, it has been much more discreet.
Meanwhile, under Trump, the U.S. has done everything it could to undermine decades of efforts to enshrine women's rights and to defend access to sexual and reproductive rights. Zahra Nasr, Global TV News.
Japan has relaxed decades-old restrictions on its armed exports, clearing the way for it to sell weapons to more than a dozen countries. The announcement marks a milestone in Tokyo's shift away from the pacifism that has characterized its post-war defense policy. Restrictions that limit arms exports to just 5 categories will be lifted. This means Japan can now sell lethal weapons to the 17 countries with which it has defense agreement, including the United States and the United Kingdom. In some sports news now, the Athletics Federation of Nigeria has opened a training camp in Lagos for Team Nigeria ahead of the 2026 World Relay Championship in Gabon, Botswana. The camp will run for 1 week under the supervision of the Federation's Technical Director, Gabriel Okon, as preparations intensify for the global event scheduled for May 2nd and 3rd. Okon explained that the camping program has parts of a phased build-up to the competition. Nigeria's Flamingos will face Guinea in the next round of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifiers after the West African side secured a dominant victory over Niger. Their performance across both fixtures highlighted their attacking strength as they advanced comfortably to set up a clash with Nigeria. The Flamingos, who were granted a bye into the second round as the highest-ranked African team, will now begin their campaign against Guinea later this month. So still on sports news, the Football Association has introduced new rules to limit heading in football amid growing concern over the long-term impact on players' brain health. Decision follows emerging research suggesting that heading the ball creates a brief pulse of energy that passes into the brain at the moment of impact. While each impact is small, experts warn that repeat exposure over time may contribute to neurological damage. That's it on News Cycle. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen at Global TV NG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching.